Welcome to Campfire Football. I'm Sebastian North. Let's go over the United States victory over Canada in the quarterfinal of the 2023 Gold Cup. So there's three areas of observation I want to cover. I'm going to give grades to, one, the team performance as a whole. I'll give a grade to the coach, BJ Callahan, for his tactics and his plan. And I'll give some grades to a few certain individuals who I thought played well or conversely did not. So number one, let's talk about the overall team performance. So the US weren't bad, but they weren't really good either. Basically, the first 80 minutes of this game were pretty stale. Now, keeping in mind, this is a United States B, C, maybe D team against a Canada A/B team, because a lot of these Canadian players would either be in a starting lineup with their A team or would at least be in the squad. So the fact the United States was largely untroubled by this Canadian team is a good thing, especially considering this group of players have only really been together for the last couple weeks. What the United States did well was really limit Canada to almost no opportunities. Aside from Miles Robinson's two handballs, which one was denied because of a foul on Busio, the second ended up being a penalty, and then Jacob Schaffelberg scores his goal in extra time. Aside from that, Canada were pretty much non-existent offensively. At no point did Canada really take control of the game. They were just looking to smash, grab, sucker punch, just do whatever they could to get a goal and then try and lock the door on the U.S. And the United States, you have to give them credit. They did a very good job to just push and push and push and eventually get an equalizer and go to penalties. You've also got to give credit for winning the penalty shootout. Look, that takes nerve and it takes togetherness as a team. It also takes a good goalie. We'll get to that later. The thing is, this was a big victory for the group. There's players who have never really been in this situation before, and so they had to go through a difficult match where they were expected to win. They felt like they were the better team, but they just found it difficult to get over the line. And in the end, they did, which is a massive confidence boost for all of the players in this group. So what was really wrong with the team performance? Well, not a whole lot. I think that most of what we saw that wasn't good actually came from a tactical perspective. A lot of the players didn't seem set up in a way to actually succeed. I'm going to give the team a B- for playing all right, but actually figuring out a way to get out of it in the end, even though it was pretty drab for large portions of the game. But it's BJ Callahan, the coach, who I think really did a disservice to them in this game, and I think it's been his worst setup for a team yet since he's been in charge. Look, I'm not going to get too critical of BJ Callahan. He's the interim manager. He played goalkeeper for Sinus College, which is a D3 school. He never played at the pro level. This is a guy who, by all accounts, should not be in this position. So I'm a fan of the fact that he's there, and he's done a good job. I mean, he won the Nations League, beating Mexico and a full-strength Canada, and has actually done a good job of managing this very strange squad in this Gold Cup, trying to find which players have something to offer down the line. But this time, what we saw was a tactical mistake from the off, and a bunch of selections in the team that just did not make sense. When you looked at the starting lineup at the beginning of the game, you saw a 4-3-3. At least that's what the broadcast networks and the websites were all showing you. You had Jesus Ferreira keeping his place as the 9, but you had Julian Gressel on the right wing and Alex Zendejas on the left. What I know about these two players, that's not really their position. They're not really high and wide wingers. And the thing is, they offer very different things. Zendejas, he likes to tuck inside. He likes to get the ball, combine with people. He's not much of a 1v1 dribbler, which is something you probably need out wide. Now, Gressel may not be a 1v1 guy, but what he is a guy who crosses the ball well. He has very good deliveries, and yeah, that makes sense to have him in there. But who's his target? Jesus Ferreira being the 9 when you got a guy like Julian Gressel on the side, or you're asking Zendejas to try and whip balls in, does not make sense. By the 70th minute, the United States has sent in 16 crosses in the direction of Ferreira. 4 had connected. That's 12 turnovers, it's too many, and the game plan doesn't make sense for that. On top of that, Jesus Ferreira is a 9 that likes to drop in. He likes to play sort of a false 9 type of role. He likes to help connect the play, and he will drop very deep to do so, which means you need players running beyond him. Take your pick. That can either be the wingers or it can be the 2 attacking midfielders that are beneath him. Now, that would be Busio and Mihailovic, but they never made runs beyond Ferreira, and neither did Gressel or Zendejas, who were supposed to be wingers. So essentially, the United States ended up playing with no forwards and 6 midfielders. Look, James Sands, as the sole holding midfielder, makes a lot of sense. He played as a double pivot with Aiden Morris in the first game against Jamaica, but it looks like BJ Callahan has thrown that idea out and wants James Sands to be the sole holding midfielder, which I think is a good thing. Now, what I find confusing is the formation supposed to be a 4-3-3 or more of a 4-1-4-1? Meaning ahead of James Sands, you have 2 wide midfielders and 2 attacking midfielders, and ahead of them, you have a 9 that you can feed off of and run past. As I said, They didn't do that, and so everything was congested in the middle. What this meant is that the Canadian defenders could just squeeze up the field, make the midfield smaller, and start to generate turnovers, which is exactly what happened. And at no point did we see a ball over the top or through space for someone to run onto behind the Canadian defense. That was the ball, and it was crying for it the whole game. Yet, that was not part of the game plan, clearly. And that is a tactical mistake. Now, I don't know what BJ Callahan said to individual players about where he wanted them to be, but it looked like he put together a group and was like, this looks right. And look, Busio, Mihailovic, Zendejas, they've been getting time. They sort of work. It's fine. But Gressel and Ferreira is the combination that works the least. If you're going to start Julian Gressel and ask him to send balls in the box, you should probably start Brandon Vasquez. And if you're not going to start Brandon Vasquez, then keep Gressel on the bench so that he can come on later and be whipping balls into him. This kind of just felt like an obvious problem from the moment you looked at the starting lineup, and it turned out exactly that way. You know what changed the game? The subs. And that's the next thing I want to sort of critique. Now, I don't actually think BJ Callahan made the wrong decisions with substitutions. Cade Cowell comes in and has an immediate impact just being fast and powerful, trying to run in behind. Brandon Vasquez comes in and scores again, but it was really strange who Brandon Vasquez came on for. You kind of assumed Jesus Ferreira would make way for Brandon Vasquez, but no, it was Georgi Mihailovic, which then meant, what position is Jesus Ferreira playing? Is he like a 10 or like a false 9 who's not really there? Either way, his impact started to drop way off when Brandon Vasquez came on the field, and it's because, once again, there were just too many midfielders. And these guys don't play enough together to be able to do really quality positional rotations like a Pep Guardiola Man City team, for instance. The other substitutions, Jordan Morris came on for Julian Gressel, didn't offer much. Christian Roldan came on later. He only had 7 minutes to make an impact and predictably did not do anything. The other things that perplex me is a center back pairing. Now, you start with Jalen Neal, who, look, he's young, he's 18. This is great experience for him. But he looked tired, and he also was making mistakes. So I don't know if this was the right game to start him when you got Matt Miazga chomping at the bit to try and make an impact. Sure, Miazga makes mistakes. So does Aaron Long. But in this game, one of them might have been a better choice ahead of Jalen Neal. The other weird thing, Miles Robinson was subbed off later in the game. So the two center backs that you start the game with, you don't finish with. You have a brand new center back pairing. That is a little strange. Now, the U.S. didn't really pay for this in any way, but it is just a bizarre decision. And I think this was one of those games where you saw BJ Callahan maybe overthinking things or just not thinking about them enough. For this reason, I got to give him a C-. I don't think this is a terrible coaching performance, but it just confuses everybody from the get-go. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people noticed the exact same thing I did. It was glaring. All right, last section. Let's grade some of the individual players. First one I will start with is James Sands, who has really locked down the number 6 role for this team in this Gold Cup. And I think he's banging on the door to be part of the A squad in the future. Look, he's not spectacular. He doesn't score goals. He doesn't get assists, but he does his job. He makes tackles, interceptions, and he plays the ball and cycles it around midfield quite well. One thing that he does have in his locker is a long-range pass, and because everything was so condensed, he was not able to use it. He was not able to make any big switches, and no one was running in behind for him to play balls over the top. I thought he did a good job to give the midfielders ahead of him a platform to go do their thing, which they just didn't really do. So I give him an A- because I think he could have had a bigger impact on the game, but he was also limited by what was going on in front of him. Now let's go with Brandon Vasquez, who deserves an A. You may think that's a little high because he put his penalty into orbit, but at the same time, he came on with not long to go, scored, put the United States in a position to win, which they should not have relinquished. And the thing about Brandon Vasquez is he is a super sub in this Gold Cup. He has now set a record for being the only player ever to score 3 goals off the bench in the competition. That's a pretty cool record. I mean, I'm sure he would rather be getting goals from a starting position instead of having to come off the bench to prove himself time and time again. And the thing is, so far, he's got 3 goals. 2 of them are big, clutch goals. The other is just a good finish that shows what he is capable of doing. Jesus Ferreira has back-to-back hat tricks, which is nice and admirable and first U.S. player to do it, but they're against St. Kitts and Nevis and a current dumpster fire that is the TNT team. So his first goal against Jamaica was just good, predatory inside the box. He's in the right place, ball falls to him, and he hits it out of the goalkeeper's reach. Seems simple, but it's a good poacher's goal. His second goal was against Trinidad and Tobago. It's a very good run in behind the defense. Cade Cowell plays the ball in, and it's a nice chip with his left foot, which is weak foot, over the goalkeeper into the net. Very classy finish, good run, because this shows you he is willing to get behind defenses. And that clearly was necessary against Canada, because his goal there, he makes a run in behind, DeJuan Jones with an unbelievable cross, and Brandon Vasquez bullets a header in, and as I said, they should have won the game from there. And now you start to think about who his competition is for strikers. Well, I would say Ricardo Pepi. Look in your rear view, Brandon Vasquez is right behind you. Well, I just mentioned DeJuan Jones for that assist, and it was an eye-catching cross. easily the pass of the game. It was fantastic, and it put it on a platter for Brandon Vasquez to just thump it home. But I really like DeJuan Jones, and I thought John Tolkien would get a little more time because against Jamaica, I thought he performed well. But BJ Callahan said that DeJuan Jones has essentially taken over that spot, and he's won the battle. Good on him. I like the way he plays. He's technical, he's physical, he's young and raw, but there's definitely something there for the future. So it's great to see him getting this experience and performing so well in that game. All right, the 3 midfield duds. I don't want to be too hard on Zendejas because I do like him as a player and think he has a lot to offer, but this was his least impactful performance yet. I give him a C, as well as Gianluca Busio and Georgi Mihailovic. The whole midfield just gets a fat C. Georgi Mihailovic was quiet, and again, part of this has to probably do with the formation. He just didn't really have much space to operate. And Busio was no better. Now, Busio's penalty kick was class, it was nice, but he also missed a chance he probably should have scored, and overall, he just didn't have very much of an impact. He also had front row seats to the debacle that was the own goal that granted US the 2-2 equalizer, but I don't know how much credit you can really give him for that. That was just a mess from Canada. And let's wrap up with Matt Turner. My goodness, this guy. Look, I just love his trajectory. He went to college at Fairfield University. It's a D1 program, but not one of the big ones. Not one of the ones that gets you noticed at a higher level. But he got out of college, went and played in the USL for a couple years, which, again, this takes a lot of desire, a lot of dedication. To get out of college, not be drafted, not be brought into the MLS or anything like that, and just go to a USL team and say, well, I hope I can climb the ladder somehow. And he did. When he got his opportunity for the New England Revolution, he just didn't let it go. And when he was given his chance for the US, my goodness, he grabbed it with both hands and has just held on tight. You remember when Zach Steffen was like the obvious number one and everyone was just crying at the fact that he wasn't playing at Man City? Well, now we have Matt Turner, who is at Arsenal and not playing much. So he gets an A. And you know what? For me, he's clearly the US number one. I don't think there's any debate about it. It'll be really interesting to see if he stays at Arsenal, maybe goes on loan, or is able to get himself a move to a big club as a number one, because he really is impressing right now. And so the United States will play Panama in the semifinal. Panama are going to be a tough test. They've been very good in this tournament, swatting Qatar away 4-0, but there is still the expectation the U.S. can raise their game and win this whole thing. Now, I do think the United States will beat Panama, but at the same time, it's going to be a tough game. And if they do make it to the final, they can't play like this against Jamaica or Mexico if they expect to win the Gold Cup. So BJ Callahan's going to have to up his game, and all the players, especially the midfielders, are going to need to be that little bit more clinical, that little bit better if they want to take this Gold Cup home. There's a lot of guys in here who may be playing their last games for the national team. So let me know what you think. What do you think of the grades I gave? What do you think of the way the U.S. played? I think it was pretty obvious for most people, but hit up in the comments section. Let me know what you think. And if there's anything you noticed that you didn't think I picked up, feel free to add that too. Hope you enjoyed the semifinals. I'm Sebastian North. This is Campfire Football. Talk to you soon.